can you give us some memorable experience, some memorable moments, another story that you have from your such a long story pool of stories and races that you will remember like forever, that you still remember to this day? I'm sure there are multiple races, stories for each of the races you've done, but something that sticks to mind.
Yeah, no, it is really very difficult because basically each and every one of those 100 races that I have here on my list, I saw something unexpected. Good things, bad things happened before the race, during the race, even after the race. So I was thinking, I'm one of the very few worldwide who have done 3 world championships in 3 different locations. I'm not sure, but it may be actually maybe even the only one. So, traditionally it is Hawaii, but then due to Corona, so I did Hawaii in 2012. And then when Corona came, they had to move it to Utah, to the US, to the state of Utah, to St. George. And then came the other change, where they started changing between Hawaii and France in Nice. So I have done all 3. And it is difficult to beat because Nice was only last year. So in a few years from now, there will be more people who have done also Nice and Hawaii. But I think until now, I'm probably one of the only ones who has done Hawaii, Utah, and also Nice. And I was thinking...
as you were explaining, I was thinking about some of the pros, but none of the names come to mind because either they've not taken part in Utah or in Nice, but it is kind of strange. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, it's very strange. And also the way how I got to qualify for these 3s, because it was quite unusual also. But okay, anyway, the story that comes to my mind, I said, okay, there are so many stories, but I picked the one from Utah because Utah last year, that was really a memorable story because it involved a lot of travel from Switzerland to the US, and then the conditions there were really hard. So the water was super cold, to the point the whole setup was really more extreme than Hawaii, I felt. And then what happened is, I also had shortly before, actually only 2 weeks before, I had a very serious personal family-related issue, but we still decided I should go to Utah because, well, we decided to do that. So I came already with the burden of that big family problem. Then secondly, a lot of travel involved to get there. And then the conditions were really hard already in the morning. The whole thing started with a long bus ride to a lake in the middle of the desert, and there were waves. It was super cold. And then during the entire race, I felt actually pretty good, I have to say. But then when it came to the marathon, I think the first half, it was also a super boring marathon course, a typical boring-ish US marathon course, straight roads, and also a lot of denivellation. And then in the middle, it started that I felt really dizzy. So I really was at the limit mentally and whatever, and also physically. And what actually happened is, you all know the Ironman thing with Julie Moss, when just 200 meters before finishing, she totally fell on the ground and was completely dehydrated and couldn't run anymore. and that became the famous The Crawl. So when you Google Ironman and The Crawl, she at the end she crawled the
on all
last
fours
100
and
meters.
just barely manages to the finish line, then collapses, and with her hand she's crossing the finish line.
Yeah, that is one of the most famous things. That is the movie, not the movie, I should say, the video that made Ironman actually popular. That went around the world. It was a negative thing, but in a way it was a positive one because she still made it. Mm-hmm. She was in first place, right? And then 100 meters before the finish. So people usually would think that's never going to happen to me. And actually, even after the Utah race was the race number, it should be race number 195 for me. It actually happened to me. Yeah, it happened to me. I totally disintegrated on the last 20 kilometers. There were also not many spectators. You were a little bit on your own, and then I had to lie down on the ground in the garage, in front of a garage of private people on the lawn, and then, to be honest, the weirdest thing that in all those years has happened to me, I saw the finish line. Before going to the finish, you had to make a U-turn, 200 meters this way and 200 meters that way, and then you were in the finish. And I basically collapsed on that U-turn. So 400 meters before the finish line, I went down. I could just hold my hand on the rail. There was an aid station, so the guy in the aid station, he put me in a chair. I was lying on my back, and again after 13 hours, it was just 400 meters away, and it didn't go. So I was lying there half an hour. So when you see my Utah finish time, it includes a nap of half an hour, where I was so dizzy, so totally torn down that I could not even finish the last 400 meters. So there was a multitude component. Like I said, it was the personal thing, it was the climate, the conditions, the traveling, the whole thing. Probably everything came together, the hard course. And then I jogged it. I finally got up on my feet again, and I went the last 400 meters and finished my world championship in Utah. Otherwise, I could not say that I'm probably the only one who has done Hawaii, Utah, and Nice, because it would have been did not finish. Huh?
Yeah, it's crazy, but
it's a crazy story.
First of all, 400 meters, that's a stadium lap. So one lap on the stadium, that's how far he collapsed from the finish line and couldn't move, so he had to lie down. I didn't know that story, but second of all, what hits me is that every time I know it, and it's still a thing that you could have the best physical, you can be the best physical shape, but still there are a lot of mental things that have to come into place that are that can move the race in one direction or another. You can be like really well trained, the taper went really well, and then something like that happens, and you just the mind is so out of the body that you cannot concentrate, and you just have so much stress on race day that's just could be fatal at some point in terms of DNF, of course. And the last, to wrap it up for this episode, the last question that has come to mind is how is your from 2007 starting in Bangkok, not knowing anything, to right now, and over 100 races behind your back. How did your training approach change over the course of your triathletic career, so to say?
Well, okay, that also is a long story, and a lot of books are written about it. But what I have to say is, a lot of things that you read about training or where you see YouTubes. A lot of times these things people write from others. They read the book and then they write another book, basically using the information they learned from another book. Then when you look at trainers, you have trainers like professional trainers like Brett Sutton, who says he gives a shit on power pedals, on heart rate monitors, and Daniela Reeve, she's even doing Hawaii without a watch. So she doesn't even know where she is. So that is one extreme. The other extreme are the Norwegians, or also Jan Frodeno in a way. They plan each and every little detail. He's monitored technically by everything. The training plan from Dan Lorang is probably, he tells him when to go on the toilet and then he has to come back. So there are differences. So you see, for me, it was also clear. I'm Googling a lot. I want to have a diverse opinion on how to approach things, not only training for Ironman. So in the beginning, I was just doing volume. I would use all the time in Bangkok that I had to bike. I could only bike. I didn't have an indoor trainer. I could only bike on weekends. But then I biked really long. It was really hot. I ran as much as I could in the morning before the traffic came. And then the swimming I did in a dark pool because it was always dark when I got home. So that was pretty much it. There was no plan as such. I was just doing extreme things, running at 100% humidity in the morning, weekend in the rice field. And then that evolved into the more you read, the more you do, the more you Google, it became more complicated. So it started about periodization, then also strength training in the gym. Then I fiddled with all these heart rate zones, power meter, that kind of thing. Now, finally, it culminated. This year is the first time that I actually hired a coach. Oh, I should say, I also have a diploma from Ironman University for
you're a coach
being
yourself,
myself a coach. So it's not that I don't have enough insight. But this year I hired the best coach in Switzerland, Roy Hinnen. He has written 2 fantastic books, the best books that you can get, in my opinion. He's very obsessed with trialing and testing himself, and also his coaches, right? So rather than giving a training plan and then sticking to it, that you can download from any website, he does intermittent tests and to see how people evolve, and puts it in context. So he sees the big picture. He sees also the person behind. And even if your times are getting slower, he will know why they're getting slower and why they should get at one point in time also slower. So that full picture, if you have time and money to pay such a coach, right? Or if you are a professional, that is one story. But most of you, they don't have that luxury. So my approach but I still signed up for it because I wanted to experience to be coached by one of the best coaches that there are. I just wanted to see what happens to me, how I respond to it. So you see, my philosophy or my practical experience ranges from no training plan, doing just as much as possible, to something super structured, right? Super structured, not like a pro, of course, because I'm not a pro, but very, very scientific, structured. Honestly, the feeling that I'm getting is we have so much things going on in our lives, and none of us is a pro. In the end, you can only think of 5 principles that you can keep in your mind, 5 sentences about training. And if you stick to those 5, these 5 will let you do your own training in a flexible way. But if you have the 5 in your mind, then that helps. You don't need to read 20,000 books or doing complicated things, but these are five simple things. We can discuss that later, but that usually helps most of people, because a lot of people, they cannot even stick to 5 simple rules, not to speak of understanding a 300-page book or a training plan with 5,000 Excel cells. So I think this is my approach to training. And I think a training camp, I've done training camps also with the German Triathlon Union and so on. I think a training camp is something that helps you. You will not get much fitter after the camp, because you need to be realistic. It is just a week. You're not going to improve your functional threshold power or something by 50 watts simply because you do a training camp of 1 week or 2 weeks. This is an illusion. What it helps you is you generate an inner sense of belonging, because you see others doing it. You get your mind around, you pause your daily life, you sit in a hotel and you do it with others, and you listen to the opinion of other people, and that gives you like an anchor. I see it like an anchor for a ship, right? When the training camp is done, you take the anchor out, you leave with your ship, but you still have the anchor with you. And then you can put that anchor a week later, 2 weeks later, half a year later. It's like an anchor. And I think that is the purpose of a training camp, right? It gives a sense of belonging, you engage with others.
And you get a lot of knowledge and experience.
You get
condensed
a lot of
in a short period of time. It's just because it's so intense in a way that you're training almost the whole day, and you get different scenarios and different situations. And with experience, with people with experience there being around, you can ask questions: why is this way, and why is that not the other way, and so on. And it's just that you get a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge in a condensed period of time.
Yeah, it will save you a lot of time. It looks like 1 week or 2 weeks is lost because you're doing some sort of sport and not going to work or whatever. But in the end, it will save you a lot of time. The net, the time that it saves you from Googling, from reading books, from talking to the left, to the right, and thinking about it, and doing wrong things all the time. The time that you save is probably 10 times of the end of what you invest into it. This is the leverage. And you will not notice right after the camp, maybe. It will sort of, after a while, it will come and will stick in your mind.
Yeah. Totally agree. All right. Yeah. With this, we'll wrap up the first episode of the podcast. I'll make sure to upload it and leave the important information in the comments. And I'm interested to have you for another round. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Thank you, Momo. See you next time.